So you did it. You jumped through all the hoops, you passed the vetting, and now you are officially on a procurement framework. But what now? How do you actually turn that spot on the list into a signed contract? That's exactly what we're going to break down right here.
And hey, seriously, let's just pause for a second. Congratulations. Getting onto a framework is no small feat. It is a massive achievement. It means you are now a pre-qualified, trusted supplier. You're in the game.
But as you probably already know, that's just step one, right? Being in the game doesn't automatically mean you'll win. So what is the secret? How do you go from being on the qualified list to being the one actually signing the contract? Let's dive in. Okay, so first, let's do a super quick refresh on what a framework agreement actually is. Think of it like a pre-approved roster of go-to suppliers. It sets all the basic rules and creates this pool of businesses just like yours that a buyer can tap for specific projects. And those projects, those are what we call call-off contracts. All right, so how do you actually get one of those call-off contracts? Well, it turns out it all boils down to two and only two very distinct paths to that finish line.
Yep, that's it, just two. And believe me, understanding the difference between these two is the absolute key to building your winning strategy.
And here they are, side by side. On one side, you've got competitive selection. That's kind of the default, the standard way things are done. And on the other, you have the direct award, which is definitely the exception to the rule. This is the fundamental choice a buyer has. So let's break down each path.
Okay, path number one, competitive selection. This is the one you'll see most of the time. The best way to think about it? It's like the final heat in a race. You've already qualified, you've proven you're a top contender just by getting on the framework. Now you're just going head-to-head with the other finalists.
So, how does this mini competition actually work? It's pretty straightforward, really. First, you get an invitation to bid on a very specific project. Then, step two, you put together and send in your proposal, tailored specifically for that job. And finally, the buyer scores all the proposals they received and picks a winner based on criteria that were set out right from the very beginning. All right, now for path number two, the direct award. This is the interesting one. This is where a buyer can just hand a contract to one supplier. No competition whatsoever. But, and this is a big but, it's only allowed if the framework was specifically set up from day one to make it possible.
Yeah, for a direct award to be totally legal and, fair, two really strict conditions have to be met. First, all the important terms of the contract must have already been laid out in the framework agreement. No negotiations. Second, the framework must have a completely objective, totally unbiased way of picking the supplier, like going to the top-ranked bidder from the original tender, or maybe just a simple rotation system.
Okay, so now you know the two paths, but wait, there's more. The whole landscape has shifted recently. The Procurement Act of 2023 has brought in some new rules of the game that you absolutely need to know to stay ahead. Yep, the game has officially changed. These updates are all about two things: cranking up transparency and speeding up the process. And honestly, that's great news for suppliers like you. So what are these changes exactly? Well, first up, buyers now have to publish something called a Contract Award Notice, or CAN, before the contract is actually signed. For you, this is basically a gold mine of market intelligence. You get to see who's winning what. The second big change? That mandatory standstill period for call-offs? It's gone. This means as soon as you win, you can get to work. No more waiting around. All right, we've covered the paths to victory and the new rules of the game. So let's put it all together. Let's build a clear, actionable playbook to help you succeed. Okay, here's your cheat sheet. First, always know which of the two paths you're on. Is this a mini competition or is there a chance for a direct award? Second, use that new transparency to your advantage. Read those contract award notices. They're free intel. And third, be ready to hit the ground running. A win can now mean an immediate start. But if there is one single piece of advice that trumps everything else we've talked about, it is this: always read the fine print. I can't stress this enough. Every single framework has its own specific rules, criteria, and processes. Those tender documents are your Bible. Look, you've already done the heavy lifting. You made it onto the list. You now know the rules of engagement and the strategies that work. So the only real question left is, are you ready to go turn that hard-earned qualification into real revenue?